Alrighty, good afternoon. Today we are going to look at rational numbers on a number line, our LEQs, or Learning Essential Questions. The questions you should be able to answer at the end of this lesson are, how do you plot rational numbers, and how is the number line read? So up here in the corner of our notes, we're going to fill in our I can box. So this is what you should be able to do by the end of this lesson. And it says, I can determine the value of rational numbers on the number line. So let's look closer, and this is going to be a little bit of a review because you guys have already been doing some plotting numbers and some adding and subtracting on the number line. So let's just get a good definition for what a number line is. We have a number line is a line that has marks on certain intervals, and the number line consists of all real numbers. So you know that when you look at a number line, most often each mark or interval is 1. So if you think about the number line that's on the top of the classroom, it counts up by 1, and each interval is one whole number. And you know that number lines, even though we might only be looking at a small portion, it extends in infinite directions on to the left and to the right, and therefore it consists of all real numbers. So let's look a little bit closer at our number line, and I bet this is going to be a review for you guys too. You guys are really good at knowing that when we go to the right, we have our positive numbers and we're adding. When we go to the left, we have our negative numbers and we're subtracting. I know you've also been able to say that a number is greater when it's further to the right and less than when it's to the left. But let's just do a little bit of a review, freshen up our memory, get ready for our lesson. So numbers to the left of 0 are negative, and numbers to the right of 0 are positive. So on the next slide, we're going to look a little bit closer at this number line right down here. And it's going to have a little bit of a trick that you might not think about. So we're going to look at exactly how to fill this in and read it. So our number line goes from -8, 0 is marked, and we have +8. This is one of those examples where you really have to look at your number line. Because if you were to try and label these ticks, these intervals, as 1, you're going to find that it won't work. So we have to do a little bit of math to figure out how we are going to label our numbers. The first thing I'm going to do is look for my end number, which is -8. Next, I'm going to count how many intervals are on my number line. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 intervals. I'm going to put that on the bottom. I'm going to divide -8 by -6, which is -4/3. So now I can look closer up at my number line, and each interval going to the left is going to be worth -4/3. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in my number line here. So I have -4/3, -8/3, -12/3, -16/3, -20/3, and then -8 is the same as -24/3, or 24/3. I'm going to write this a little bit clearer so it's more legible. So we have -20/3 there. Now when we're looking at the positive side, we also have 6 spaces because all of our intervals on the number line have to be the same. So we can take the exact same math that we did down here and bring it in to fill up our intervals here. They're just going to be positive because we're going to the right. So I'm going to have 4/3 or thirds, 8 thirds, 12 thirds, 16 thirds, 20 thirds, and once again we said 8 is the same as 24 thirds. Oops. So I'm going to have you try this problem now. Look at your intervals, how many marks there are, and then remember that you're going to put the end number over the number of intervals in intervals to figure out what each interval is worth. So I want you to tell me what each interval is worth. You can go ahead and put that on the question on Edpuzzle. So, nope, I forgot to label my negative here. So I have, you can either look at the 3 or the -3. I'm going to look over here at the 3. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 intervals. So I'm going to do my end number, which is 3, over 6 equals 1/2. So each interval is 1/2. And I'm going to go in and fill in my number line now. And I'm going to do it on the negative side. So I know that's going to be -1/2, -2/2 or 1, -3/2, -4/2 or 2, and -5/2. And then if I wanted to fill in my positive side, it's going to be the exact same thing, just with positive numbers. So 1/2, 2/2, 3/2, 4/2, and 5/2.